Welcome to the Teachers Need Teachers podcast, where we help new and beginning teachers navigate through those crazy first years of teaching so you can maintain your sanity and personal life. Here's your host, Kim Laprie.
Welcome to the Teachers Need Teachers podcast, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kim Laprie, and this is the podcast for new and beginning teachers who don't want to just survive those first few years, but actually thrive. Today, on episode 55, I'm interviewing yet again another principal from a school across the country. And the purpose of this interview is to find out what this principal looks for when interviewing someone for a job at their school, as well as trying to get into their head and figure out what questions they're asking, what kind of answers they're looking for. And on this particular episode, I want you guys to pay attention to what this principal suggests when you don't know an answer to a question. So this is part of my interview series. This is the fourth part of the series. And if you're just joining the podcast, I suggest that you also go back to episodes 52 and 53. All of these episodes are with a different principal, and I've posted the questions that they ask me in the show notes. So this way you can have a really complete picture of what different principals are asking, and you can be the most prepared for your next job interview.
My name is Dennis Sheeran.
And this is Raymond Steinmetz.
And we are from the Instant Relevance Podcast. We are proud members of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you are listening to right now. Make sure you check out all of the other great podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com. And get ready, because the learning begins in 3, 2, 1.
I think you're going to love this particular episode because I have an amazing guest, Rob Fulk, who is the principal at Marion C. Moore School in Louisville, Kentucky, which is a huge and diverse school with a thriving academy model. Rob and I have a very open and honest conversation on how to frame your answers to interview questions. Here's my conversation with Rob. I'm picturing myself as a new teacher coming to your school, and you have a lot of clubs, and you have all these academies, and you have 170 certificated staff. And I could see a new teacher sort of hiding away in their corner and sort of being overwhelmed by all of this. How do you integrate or help a new teacher acclimate to your school when there's just so much going on?
Yeah. So the first thing is we start in the interview process. We really hammer in the interviews, especially for our new teachers that are new to the profession, but also new to the building, that an expectation here is that you ask for help. Like we do not want you to hide in a classroom and then it'd be December and you'd be like, everything's on fire. Now, granted, we have a lot of structures in place to monitor that so that we know, but it is not a bad thing. It is an expectation and a very good thing when you're new to go ask for help. And we put a couple of things in place to help you do that. The first one is we assign you a mentor, one-on-one. Then we assign you another mentor if you're in one of the programs that you might have to do. Like if you're a CTE teacher and you've got to do the new CTE teacher, we assign you an additional mentor there. If you do KTIP, which is our Kentucky Teacher Internship Program, which is, I think, going away this year, then you'll get a mentor there. But you have one that's more of an informal mentor that you can ask hey, when do I get to go to the bathroom? Or,
right.
What's the best way to approach my AP, or this, that, or the other. And then one that's a more formal process. One of my assistant principals on the high school and one of my assistant principals on the middle school also run our new teacher cohort, which has changed a lot over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. 3 years ago, it was more prescriptive, and what we found was we were throwing way too much at our new teachers. And while we felt like we were giving them tons of support, we were, but it was too many voices. So this last year, we shifted more to a more structured approach through the mentor aspect. We like that, and we're going to improve on that a little bit more next year with a couple of modules throughout the year for them, but then also more structured time for them to work with their mentor. which is like, all right, this hour here is just you and your mentor, and we're going to put it on the calendar, and you got to do it. So there's no excuses, and come with what you need. So we do that. And what we consider a new teacher here is 0 to 3 years.
Right.
So if you're new to us, like new, you just got your shiny new certificate, you come to us, you're going to be a new teacher cohort for 3 years. That's also if you're come to us from another place, but maybe have a year or two under your belt, you're still considered new. We also include anyone who has been brought into the building, whether or not they have 5 years, 20 years, 30 years, they got to do the year of new teacher cohort as well.
Just to get acclimated to the school culture.
Yeah. And then we also find too that, like if I pick up a 17-year veteran and put him in the new teacher cohort with mostly newer people, that 17-year veteran by November, December is being one of the facilitators for it. And they're imparting knowledge there, and it builds some collegiality and stuff like that.
So when you're in the interview process, knowing the culture of your school, what are some qualities that you definitely look for that tell you that this person is going to succeed in your school?
The first one I'm looking for is I want a sense on whether or not they truly and honestly care about kids, or if this is just a job. And I know that's very hard to quantify, but I think after a while of interviewing people, you kind of hone your gut senses on that. Let's see, I'm over 130 hires now in the past 3 years. We went from hiring 79 the first year to 49 the second year. And right now I have 7 vacancies. So we're seeing a nice change in that trend. People are staying and want to work here. But we've done just a ton of interviews over the past couple of years. And the first thing I'm looking for, and I want to hear, and I'll hear some experience connected to it. Show me that you care about kids. Show me that you're here to build them as better people, not just teach them English or not just teach them math, but also that you're going to build a kid that has a kind heart, and you're going to build a student that you can send out of here that will think 10 years from now, wow, Mr. Fulk was an awesome teacher, and this is why. So that's the first thing I look for. The second one is I look for a richness of experience. And that doesn't necessarily mean teaching experience. I want to see some life experience where you've done some things, taken some risks, done some tough jobs. I love when I get that new teacher that new teacher resume that still has all of the non-education jobs on it. And I see things on there like I work construction, or, I work double shifts at UPS on nights, because I know that they're going to come in with a richness of experience where they don't just have the education lens on. I'm a big fan of second career folks, just being upfront. I think, and what I've seen over the years is they come with that richness of life experience that it tends to lend itself to a better understanding in the classroom. That being said, we don't give preference to them. I just personally, I think a lot of times they bring a richness to it. And then the last thing I look for is not necessarily pedagogical skills, because we can teach that. I need to see content knowledge. Like if I am interviewing an English teacher and I ask, what was the last book you read? They better be able to answer Johnny quick, and then tell me something about that book, because you're an English teacher, you read. I taught English. We're all readers. Tell me about the last thing you read and why it was important to you. And it doesn't have to be a textbook. Like, what was the last thing you picked up? So that richness of content experience is important.
Let's pretend like I'm sitting on the interview today. I'm applying for, let's say, a 7th grade English position, because that's what I teach. Are you ready for this mock interview part? Yeah. Okay. I'm kind of nervous, but all right, let's do this.
All right. The first question, and we ask every applicant this, what do you know about our school?
I know that you are a 6 through 12 school in Kentucky. I know that, and you've told me this, but you have a lot of different academies in your school. One of them that during my research that sort of caught my eye was that you also have a freshman seminar course, which I think that they definitely need going into the high school side, sort of transitioning them over there. from also looking at the Twitter accounts for you and for your school, I know that there is a lot of diversity. I see a lot of praising kids and highlighting, student and staff achievements, which I think is really important to a positive school culture.
Awesome. All right, next question I've got for you. What's more important to education and the success of our students, tradition or innovation? And defend your answer.
I definitely think that innovation is more important, and not that I'm definitely one to always buck tradition, because I think it's good to honor the work that people have done in the past. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with tradition, as long as you're not just doing things because we've always done it this way. So in many ways, I like to take things that we've traditionally done, like the way that we teach reading and writing, and innovate it. So by innovating, meaning changing it to meet the needs of the students that are currently in front of you every single year. So I have a way that I teach reading and writing. I have a certain way that I teach the writing process, but I don't teach it the same way every year because technology changes. The needs of my student changes. One year I'll have all accelerated students, and the next year I'll have 50% students with IEPs. And so I have to innovate and adjust to the needs of my students so that I can meet them where they're at and bring them up to where they can be. So they're individual potential, not where I need them to be, but the best that they can be personally.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Following up to that one, what perspectives outside of a Euro-centric curriculum can you bring to our classrooms?
At my particular school that I teach at, we have a really diverse population, and we have a large population of Filipino students, and I'm a Filipina, and I do bring that in to connect with those students, because the majority of the students in my school are Hispanic, and we're in a mainly Hispanic community, and there's a lot for them to draw upon and for them to relate to. But, with the Asian culture in particular, we're sort of this model minority where there's these expectations of us. And that's something that I try to take the pressure off of those students. And I joke with them about, things that are sort of individual to or unique to our culture, to make them at ease and let them know that I don't have unreasonable expectations of them. I just want them to do their best. So I try to bring in my own experience and also what I know about the Hispanic culture, and I employ them to help me, like, how do you say this in Spanish? Or I don't think I'm pronouncing this right. And they help me out with that. So I try to find opportunities to both relate to them, but also let them be a little more the teacher and I'm the student, because they actually really appreciate that.
Can you give me some specific examples in an ELA classroom of literature that you would bring in from a non-Eurocentric perspective?
Sure. I do a lot of short stories as opposed to novels, and there's a particular author, Sandra Cisneros, and she's a Hispanic author, and whether they are Hispanic or they're Asian or Caucasian, all of the students, they can relate to the stories of these kids who are in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade and what they're struggling with. But then it also honors the Hispanic culture in her stories, because there's references. She uses actual, Spanish words in there. And then it's kind of fun in class because I'll say, well, what is that? I don't know what that is. And so then our Hispanic students will explain to everyone else what that means. And you can see the pride that they get from being able to talk about that.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Coming to us, 17 years of experience. What specific supports are you going to need to be successful? Are you going to need to be successful in our building?
I'm definitely going to need a strong PLC, meaning subject and grade specific PLC team. I really believe in working collaboratively with my team, not just so that I can tell them what I think we should do, but because I love to bounce ideas off of them. And I like to find different ways to teach the content. So I definitely want to be able to work with these, with these people in there. So just a strong team. Also, I do tend to like to teach the classes that have a larger population of, I'd say, special ed in terms of students with IEPs that are mainstreamed in the classes. I really like to work with those students. And so I'd want to be able to access a strong special ed team as well, who will be able to help me work with the parents, figure out what kind of accommodations or modifications I need to make for the students to help those students be successful.
Okay. All right. The last question I have is a two-parter.
Okay.
What are your expectations of a team or PLC, and how do you uphold your own expectations with your team and PLC?
So a large part of working well with the PLC is being able to compromise, and even though we feel that we're right, being able to see from another teacher's perspective. So I expect all of us to come in open-minded enough to hear each other out and then maybe give our own spin on a topic or a particular lesson without getting defensive or being or attacking another teacher. So I've been in experiences where it's been like that, and my current PLC right now, we work really well together because we all approach teaching the same standard or even teaching the same text a little bit differently. And I love the diversity of that because I get ideas from other teachers. What was the second part of the question?
How do you uphold your own expectations with your team and PLC?
Okay, so before that one, the other expectation that I have for a PLC is that everyone comes prepared. So we set the agenda for the next meeting and everyone comes knowing what they're going to contribute to the meeting and not just showing up and saying, what are we doing? Or what are you guys teaching this week? So I expect that they're going to come with something to contribute so that we're not just wasting time talking about our kids. I mean, I know there's always a little bit of that before it starts, but I want them to come and not waste our time. So I definitely uphold my end in that before we meet together as a PLC, I'll definitely have some notes that that apply to the agenda so that I'm prepared. If we're talking about, we want to teach becoming Nomi Leon, how are you teaching, theme on this one, then I'll have some resources ready to talk about when we're going to be talking about theme. I'm there on time, and I am collegial, and if someone we joke around at the same time during a meeting, but for the most part, I'm there to get to work so that we can all leave on time and get something out of the meeting.
Good deal. Those are my 5.
So any feedback?
Yeah, sure. So
Okay.
I think you killed the, I guess it was my third question about perspectives outside of the Euro-centric curriculum. I like specifically being able to name the authors and then how you use that to highlight students in the classroom. Like that was a good answer. I would have probably put a smiley face on my interview pad on that one. The last one there. So I asked that one a lot of experienced teachers. So typically in the interview process, we're going to have their peers are part of the interview panel, and they need to hear what that person expects from their team and PLC. But they also need to hear, all right, how are you going to do your own expectations? And what I heard was, you expect compromise, open-mindedness, not being defensive or not attacked, and then the underscoring and being prepared and contributing. So I thought you did a good job answering that one.
Oh, good.
You didn't give an example about the open-minded or defensive, not attacking part, but that's okay. That's a hard one. I don't necessarily know if that gives good to give a specific example to. The other ones you did really well on. The tradition or innovation question, I like the answer there. That was good. We'll usually throw in a couple of philosophical questions like that, just because I want to see how someone thinks. Are they looking at this as the art and science of teaching? Hopefully,
right.
And I don't think there's a right answer to that, because I think you can have a good way to look at the traditional way we do education and be able to make that a relevant answer. I lean more towards the innovation side, but I also want to hear what innovation means. Does innovation always mean change to the applicant, or does innovation mean something more specific? And I think the spin you took on that and how you use innovation to adapt specifically the curriculum that you're teaching from year to year and match that more towards the individual student. I thought that was a really, really strong answer there. That was good. The specific supports coming into the building, that one I really like for new teachers, because I want to hear that they've got some growth mindset. I want to hear that they're going to ask for help. What I don't want to hear is, well, I feel pretty good. I just need somebody to give me a mentor and I'll be okay. Like, no, I don't, that's not good. From an experienced teacher, you hit the two things I want to hear every time, which is I want a strong PLC. I want a strong grade level. Like, because new teachers, they know the veteran teachers know that they don't want to come into an environment where nobody's pulling their weight. They want to know coming in that they're going to be respected for the fact that they've got, 15 years in the profession, and that they're going to get to work and they're not going to have to play, oh, look, Becky over there didn't come with her data this time,
Yeah.
and just absolutely hate that. So that's good. Yeah, you really killed that one. But yeah, no, it was good. I'd probably hire you.
Oh, yay. I just think that new teachers, they get so nervous. Well, actually, probably any teacher going to an interview, they get so nervous about what they're going to be asked and not being able to think on the fly. And I think that this will help them. They won't necessarily get the exact same questions from every principal, obviously, but a lot of the questions that I received on these interviews, they're around the same types of themes, and a lot of them are, how are you with your team? How are you with students and being, student-centered, meeting the needs of the students? Questions along those lines and philosophy. So I think they need to be able to articulate all of that right away at a moment's notice. And I think that that'll help them be prepared for the interview.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the things too, that new teacher in that interview should not be afraid of saying, I don't really know the answer to that, but here's what I do know. And I want to know more. Like, for me, I know that's a huge one. Like, we interviewed a lady this morning who's new to the profession, and we asked her a question about standards-based grading, and her answer was very minimal. And she said, I really, that's about all I know. And I'm like, okay, well then ask me some questions about it.
Right.
That spark your curiosity. And she had just killer questions. Like, they were awesome. And we're probably going to end up extending her an offer.
Oh, nice.
Later today, just because, one of the things my committee was really impressed with, they were like, she's got an inquisitive mind. She's got a good growth mindset about her. Like, we can support her into being a rock star teacher. She has all the stuff she needs to come in. We can teach her some of the skill stuff. Like, I firmly believe I probably don't have anyone on staff that can teach someone to like kids. So if you can't do that, then you probably don't need to be here. But all that stuff, like, we can teach you how to think pair share. We can teach you how to do Google Classroom. We can teach you all of that skill stuff. So I don't really care if you can do that coming in if you're new. Like, I want to see the stuff that we can't teach. Do you have that strong foundation to be an awesome educator?
But how about for teachers who are a little bit more meek or introverted? Do they have a chance to get a job if they can't be a little more outgoing, or do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. So one of the mistakes I made early in my career was when interviewing people, I found myself putting a premium to the more outgoing people. And I think I passed on some really good applicants when I was a younger principal because of that. So I really, really, really try to, from my personal perspective in an interview process, is to listen to the meat of it and not necessarily the presentation of it. That being said, one of the things I absolutely cannot stand is coming into an interview in casual wear. Like, that's a presentation piece everybody's got to knock out of the park. Like, just take the time to put on something, appropriate for an interview. But past that, if you're not super outgoing, that has been something I've had to be mindful of for myself over the years, is that, they could be nervous as heck and they might be a rock star and outgoing in the classroom, but they're sitting in front of a firing squad of 10 people they've never met being asked highly technical questions. So let's instead make sure that we pay attention to the meat of what they're saying and the quality of their responses. So I don't, the presentation portion of it, I'm not huge on, not as much as I have been in the past. So yes, absolutely. I think someone more meek and reserved has an excellent opportunity to get picked up by us.
Do you just try to elicit more from them if they don't give you very involved answers, so that you can, because you can tell that they're nervous?
Yeah. So, good hiring practices that we ask every interview, every person that we interview, every candidate, the same questions. However, it's perfectly appropriate to ask follow-up questions, and those follow-up questions can be unique to the applicant. So if I ask, can you give me some what perspectives outside of a Euro-centric curriculum will you bring into your classroom? And it's kind of sparse, but there's some more there. All right, you're going to teach ELA. Tell me some specific titles that you would bring in. Tell me some specific authors. And then that gives them an opportunity. It prompts them and go, oh, okay, well, I've got these 5 people that I like. Here's what I would bring in. And then we also have gotten into the habit now with new folks. We tell them before the interview starts, we realize you're new. Like, we'll tell you not to be nervous, but please don't be nervous. We realize you're new, and you're probably, we approach this as you are new to this. Mm-hmm. And so we're not expecting perfection.
Right. Thank you so much for giving me your time today. I really enjoyed this interview, and I know that my listeners are going to get so much out of it. If they're interested in learning more about your school, where can they find out more information?
Yeah, so you can go to our website. It's just Google Marion C. Moore School. I think it's www.moremustangs.com. Mm-hmm. The best place to look for us is Twitter. We do a lot on Twitter at More Mustangs, and then at Rob Fulk, Fulk. And then we have about 80 different accounts. We may be over 100 now of school-specific stuff on Twitter. We do some stuff on Instagram, and we do YouTube as well. Yeah, absolutely. And you can always shoot me an email. It's rob.fulk@jefferson.kyschools.us. It's on the website. Not hard to find. I like giving back as much as I can to the profession. I want to thank you for this opportunity. This was really cool. I've never been asked to do a podcast before. And when I kicked it up the food chain to my boss, she was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, this is exciting. I was like, yeah, I know, right? I mean, it's like, it feels really cool. So thank you for that opportunity. I really appreciate this resource that you've done. We're actually we were talking about it the other day. We're going to include it in our new teacher cohort and point them towards this as a resource they need to look at.
Oh, thank you. One more thing that I wanted to ask, since you have so many accounts from different teachers, do you guys have like a common hashtag that you use that people can search?
Absolutely. Hashtag no more, KNOWMOORE. We built that hashtag a couple years ago because we felt the community didn't know anything about our building other than the negative stuff that was out there, and we wanted them to know more about our kids.
I like the play on words on there. That's awesome. So thank you again, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. That was awesome.
So there you have it. My awesome conversation with Rob, and I have a few takeaways that I wanted to share with you today. First of all, as a new teacher, you're going to want to ask for help. And this goes with any school for any new teacher. I know it can be hard, and I know that sometimes you feel like you're bugging other people, but honestly, the only way that you're going to get what you need those first few years is to ask for help. Also, when you're interviewing, try to give specific examples as much as possible. Don't just use educational jargon. Try to think of a situation that happened to you or a possible situation and how you would have handled it. And I'm pretty sure that even student teaching experience or observations would also count. If you don't know the answer to something, admit it. Admit that you don't know, but you want to know more. And be ready to ask questions about it, but don't pretend that you know when you don't. I hope that you found this information useful today and that you're going to take these questions and once again, practice these with the other questions that you got from the past 2 episodes. I really, really want you to be prepared for those interviews. And I'd also love to hear back from you if you did practice with these episodes, you did practice these questions, whether or not you got the interview, and let me know how it went. I reply to everyone who emails me, so if you'd like to go ahead and reach out to me and tell me how it went, you can email me at kim@teachersneedteachers.com. Thanks again for spending your time with me today. Have a fabulous week.
Thanks for listening to the Teachers Need Teachers podcast. Love this episode? Head over to Apple Podcast or Google Play to subscribe, rate, and leave a review.